Hey there, Laura Brandenburg from Bridging the Gap, and today let's talk about how to excel as an introverted business analyst. Now, if you're wondering what I mean by introverted, this is not about being shy. Introversion is when you get your energy gets built up by being alone versus an extrovert who has energy, their energy gets built up when they are with other people. And some of us are introverts and some of us are extroverts. And whether you are an introvert or an extrovert, I think you're going to gain a lot from today's video, because if you are an introvert, you're going to learn tips from somebody like me who is an introvert on succeeding and excelling as a business analyst. If you're an extrovert, you're going to learn tips for working with the introverts that are part of your teams. So let's dive right in. So we talked about an introvert not necessarily being somebody who's shy, but somebody who gets their energy from being alone or working independently. So there's some challenges that introverts face as business analysts. And quite honestly, a lot of people are surprised to learn that I'm an introvert because I do things like this, like share videos and really engage on social media and speak at events and do live training programs. But I will tell you that those activities, they are straining to my energy in a certain way. So after I speak, even at like an hour and a half long chapter meeting, I need some time to decompress and be on my own. So, and that is true for a lot of introverts. Like, we can do it, we can be out there, we can be visible, but it's not necessarily the activity that fuels us and that energizes us. And so I get much more energized like writing a blog post or figuring out an analysis model or kind of working on something independently than I do being on a phone with a client or working or speaking publicly, things like that. And so this is common for introverts, and it's not that we can't do those things, it's just that that's not the thing that fills up our energy. So some of the comments that come up though from introverts, and I face these challenges too, one of the things is about slow thinking. Like, oh, it feels like I think slow, right? Like everybody else has this fast pace of thinking, and in a meeting it feels like I'm always trying to catch up because I think too slow. And I remember telling a really early coach of mine, like, I just need to learn how to think faster because I think too slow. And she's like, yeah, I don't really think that's your problem. Like, let's look at some other strategies for how to handle this. And she was right. It wasn't that I think slow, it was that I think better when I am processing information independently, because that's when my energy is getting built up. So it wasn't so much about finding a strategy where I could think as fast as everyone else in a meeting. It was about finding a strategy where I could have the space to think critically and analytically in an independent way and bring those ideas back to the meeting. And so as a business analyst, we have perfect tools to do this. We can say, hey, I need to take everything we learned in this meeting today and put it together in a draft model. And I'll schedule another meeting to review. And now that draft model or draft requirements document, now that has your best thinking. You get time to work on it, to think it through, to look at it analytically and structure kind of the requirements and put things together and find questions to ask. And then you get to come back to the group and present those ideas and facilitate a discussion that's leveraging some of your best thinking. Now, if you are an extroverted BA, or even if you're an introverted BA, a lot of your stakeholders, especially end user business process stakeholders who do a lot of work that's not externally facing, right? Like your billing people and your internal HR people and people that work on those systems and day to day, they're probably going to be pretty introverted too. And so you want to look at ways and strategies to engage them, give them time to review a document ahead of time, to think through something and bring their ideas to the meeting so that you're getting that balance of perspectives and not just getting the requirements from your more extroverted stakeholders. Okay? So the other thing to think about is focusing on analysis and not perfection. So because you get your energy from that independent work, that time to be thinking critically and working on things and thinking through models, it's going to be really tempting to perfect those models and to overanalyze or spend a lot of time like figuring out how to get the everything perfectly aligned in Visio, right? Because that's going to be somewhat energizing because you're going to feel like you're working through something. It's really important to recognize that for what it is. And yes, you want to do your thinking and structured thinking and critical thinking and give your time self space to do that. But you also really want to make sure you're getting those models back in front of stakeholders and getting feedback and really engaging people in that process as a business analyst and not just kind of working on it all on your own and then putting it out when you feel like it's perfect. Most likely then you're going to get that yes but response that causes challenges, and you're going to feel like you had this perfect model that just got torn apart in a meeting. So you want to definitely create time and space to do those more extroverted, people-oriented activities so that you're getting that buy-in, asking those questions, getting that feedback all along the way. Now, one challenge, the third thing I want to talk about, came up from somebody I was recently on a mentoring call with someone, and she talked about how her voice will literally give out in a meeting. And she's like, is there something I can do about that? Like, what's going on here? And, it's not uncommon to have some sort of a physiological response to fear that might be coming up. And so, there might be fear at play there or something else going on at play there. I personally have noticed that as I've increased the visibility of my work at Bridging the Gap and been doing things like more videos and more webinars and expanding the reach of some of our programs, like I'll get sore throats and coughs and sinus affections, and like they always tend to come up when I'm supposed to be recording videos or doing my training or something like that. And it could just be coincidence. We have young kids, and so there's tons of germs in our house, right? But it could be related a little bit to that fear around getting visible and doing things like this, like recording a video. So there's not a super one-stop solution to this. It's really about, for you, figuring out, is there a reason that this is happening? Is there a fear that I'm not acknowledging? Is this, do I want to let my voice giving out or my cold or whatever to stop me from acting here? Is there a strategy that I can work around it? So kind of doing some self-reflection on that and figuring out what's really going on. In the space though, take a few deep breaths. Ask a question, let there be some silence, let other people fill the space with answers to that question. Take an agenda item, right? Take a next step that allows you to do something independently, like we just talked about. Just kind of create solutions that work in the moment. Now, one of them that I like to do, this is something I've learned just recently, it's a little woo-woo, but if you are a little bit woo-woo, or even if you're not, there's some good research behind this too. It's called EFT. Now, EFT is just, you can tap here, this is your karate chop point. You can also tap kind of these points. Google it, there's some good information about EFT on YouTube videos for sure. It's called EFT, it's Emotional Freedom Technique, also called tapping. And it's just a good pattern interrupter. So if I'm on a webinar and I feel my voice crackle, or I get nervous about a question that's come in, or I'm like, oh my God, who am I to be up here talking to everyone? I'll just start tapping quietly like this. So it's perfect. You can do that under your desk, right? Like I'm doing it right now. You can't see me. You could do that under your desk during a meeting if you wanted. If you're running conference calls, you can do it, wherever. You could just sit here and do this while you're on your conference call. But it's just a pattern interrupt technique that tends to shift your energy. And it's a good way to deal with any fear, whether you're introverted or extroverted. EFT can be really useful. So kind of a little bit of a woo-woo way to think about it, but what I really want you to take away from this is that there's no reason that as an introvert, like you shouldn't be a business analyst or you can't be a business analyst or really any role like that involves so much critical and analytical thinking. You have a lot of skills that are going to serve you really, really well in this role. That ability to think critically and to work independently and to dive into a requirements model, super, super, super important. So you just need to balance that with the activities that are going to make sure you're engaging with your stakeholders fully and leverage the tools that you have to prepare for those meetings and get through those meetings and deal with any of the stuff that comes up along the way, and not let that fear drive you, and let instead that that time that allows the awareness of your energy to drive you and find a balance that's going to work for you and your career. So lots that we could say about this one. I hope those tips are useful as an introvert, or if you're an extrovert and just learning how to deal more effectively with introverted people. Again, I'm Laura Brandenburg from Bridging the Gap, and have a great rest of your week.